you've seen it. MMA guys and boxing guys, they don't really get along. I'm trying to break the barrier, being like, might lose some followers, people might talk shit, but at the end of the day, it's all fun to me, bro. This is what I love to do. You know what I'm saying? I love combat sports. But yeah, man, I got a lot of haters out there, bro. A lot of people don't like me.
Jumping in there, the most vocal. I love Julian Williams. I think that guy is, I think he's one of the most knowledgeable guys in the sport, in boxing. And and that's barring no one, not even media members, man. The dude is on point. There's some people that I look to when I look at Twitter for like the voice of reason. I've got 71 followers or something like that, 72. So my reach can only go so far, even if I've got the right idea. So sometimes I see people talking wild stuff, and I swear to you, I just sit and wait around. I say, you know what? I know that Julian Williams is going to get to this. I know he's going to handle this shit. And sure enough, he comes in and handles it, man. People were praising Masvidal. I love Masvidal, man. That's my, 305 till the day I die. My boy. But you got boxing media guys praising him for taking a fight on short notice and cutting 20 pounds fucking out of the blue like that. This is not good. I don't understand the boxing media, man. I don't understand it, bro. I didn't even think of this before I made this fucking video. This should have probably been the whole point of the video. You got promoters out there praising a guy. I mean, remember, this is Masvidal. He should not have gotten this shot, correct? So this is Masvidal. Gun to his head, essentially, right? If he wasn't in line for the title before, and they say, hey, look, man, you want to fight under these circumstances? Masvidal's game bred. I don't think he's playing. So this is like gun to his head, man. If you ask a guy, Masvidal, a question like that, you know the answer you're going to get. Real boxing reporters and real, boxing, personas, I would say, praising this behavior. I remember asking Paulie Malignaggi a while ago, how we avoid some of these injuries. And I remember him telling me that, really, we've got to get the sport clean. We got to clean it up and make sure that people aren't on PEDs. But the other thing is, these weight cuts are fucking crazy. These weight cuts are ridiculous. And to be promoting this, we know the jury's out, the science is in. If you lose too much water too quick, you lose fluid up in here. And when you lose fluid in here, you don't get it back as quick as you get it in the rest of the places. And if you're getting banged in the head, no bueno. No bueno. You see what I'm saying? And we're going around praising this. Making such an extreme cut, taking the fight on somewhat of a, take it or leave it situation. Fuck that. I'm proud we don't do that in boxing. We do that in boxing, but when we don't, I will never advocate for this. I don't think it's brave. I don't think it's cool. I think you're putting people at fucking risk. You're propagating these things that can get people fucking hurt. Go through these people's Twitter. Again, I got to bring up Patrick Day. They're going to make a movie about Magomedov, by the way. That's fucking amazing, man. I saw that on Boxing Scene. Man, that fight was crazy. I can remember watching that fight live and watching the beating that Mikey Perez gave him. And feeling sad, man. Feeling like really... it might have been one of the first times... I don't know what this says about me, but one of the first times that I was genuinely sad the next day, when something happened to, somebody like a sports person or whatever. I was sad as hell to hear that happened to that guy. we talk about these things, you know, when they happen, everybody wants to jump in and virtue signal. Oh, it's a tragedy. We gotta do something about the fucking sport. And then you cheer Masvidal on for cutting 20. It's not boxing, right? So you're not taking it to the head all day. And considering the fight he was in against Usman, him, you know, it was a rough and tumble, him pushing him up against on the fence. So you're not gonna see that. But this is not something. It's not even the same fucking sport. You don't praise it in boxing. I just completely changed the entire video, the entire subject of the video. I didn't even want to talk about the other shit anymore. What are we praising with this though? You know, so then when the next guy almost dies at the scales trying to do what the fuck it is that you want him to do because you think it's tough and cool, and you think it's some sort of throwback to some golden age of fighting, when that guy dies, shut up. Shut up. Don't say anything. I don't want to hear a fucking word from any of these people because it's disgusting, really. You guys don't fight. You don't, you know, whatever. And even if you did, you shouldn't be saying it then. Shame on you then. Shame on you. So there's that too. You know, there's the way they treat their fighters, man. The UFC is not superior to boxing in any way, shape, or form. Not in the way they treat their fighters. Not in what happened this last weekend. Masvidal doesn't get another crack at that fucking title. He took the shot at gunpoint, lost, and then, you know, that's it. They're going to kick him to the curb. Some would say that that's fair because he didn't deserve to be in that position anyways, but you don't. So then why put the guy at risk like this? It's just not superior. It's not. I don't know what to say, right? If we don't have the real pay-per-view numbers, I'm going to go by the ones that are coming from Dana or coming from whatever source. I'm going to go with those, right? You ain't beating them in pay-per-views, and you're not beating. You're at least not beating PBC and actual TV viewers, and you weren't beating Top Rank in 2017 and 2018. You've been beating the shit out of them for the past year and a half. I give you that. I don't know where the debate comes from. I hope that, you know, that people know, just you know, I hope that people understand I am not so invested in this. I'm really not. It made me a little invested. This Twitter makes you fucking crazy. You gotta watch with this. You know, so that's how we're going into this fight week, like into this Masvidal Usman fight weekend on Twitter. There's already a commotion. There's already a brouhaha, you know, of people that are running this narrative of UFC's better than boxing, and oddly enough, it's coming from the side of like boxing reporters, you know, and boxing media guys and boxing fucking whatever, you know. And I had already somewhat did the math on this in a video that nobody watched a few weeks ago. Nonetheless, I realize you guys got stuff to do. I'm not blaming it on you, but still, you should probably check it out. But I did the work already. So I had already looked at what's going on ESPN in terms of what the UFC is doing, what's going on at Fox in terms of what PBC is doing, and what's going on with Top Rank on ESPN. I already know these numbers. I already know. Well, one, I know that the UFC is, for brevity's sake, kicking the shit out of Top Rank right now as we speak. But in 2017 and 2018, when Top Rank was on ESPN and when the UFC was on Fox, Top Rank was having better years. PBC right now on Fox is having a better time than the UFC is having at ESPN and that Top Rank is having at ESPN. But nonetheless, I know, based on the numbers, that either promotional company, Top Rank when it's got Loma and Bud and guys of that stature fighting on TV, they do numbers on par with PBC. They do numbers better than the UFC. PBC's got a deep stable and a deep roster. As long as they're doing what they're doing, they're going to put up better numbers than the UFC. This is a fact. This is just basic math, right? So they're beating them there. Dana does not release the numbers, at least since the ESPN merger. Doesn't release them. So nobody knows what's going on. Now, I spoke to some people that are like in, that write for boxing, but also do UFC stuff. So I asked them, I guess, what's the most fair way to go about looking up these numbers? What are the most reliable sources? Because all you can get is like, these inside sources, which I'm sure are getting funneled in through Dana White himself. So I got like sent a few links to some, and I just compiled a list. I compiled a list of the last 5 years from 2015 to 2020 for the UFC. I'm sorry, for all of MMA, because I think a few Bellator fights cracked, kind of cracked the list, but not many anyways. So it was only a few. But nonetheless, I added up all these numbers that, again, these are numbers that are coming from wherever they're coming from. I did the same for boxing over the past 5 years. And again, this is all of boxing, right? And the numbers that I came up with for boxing in 23 pay-per-view fights, 680,000 on average over this past 5 years. There's something important though that I've got to mention after we get into the UFC. UFC put up 51 fights over the 5 years. So again, I mean, it's way more fights, maybe way more risk potentially. And they were averaging 540,000 pay-per-view buys, 27.6 million in the 5 years is what I counted. Now, if we're starting back from January 1st, 2015, there's also another outlier there. There's the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. I don't know that boxing has another Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. That fight did 4 and change, right? So if you take that fight off, the numbers dip dramatically, and maybe it's a little bit closer, if not a little bit less than the UFC. But nonetheless, that fight did happen, and it did come from boxing, and it did build, and it did simmer over years, and it did lead to multiple millions of other pay-per-view buys in the years prior to 2015. So it's on the list. And we could say the same for the UFC. I don't know if there's another McGregor, and we've got Rousey on this list. I don't know if there's another Rousey. I think Nunes is putting up good numbers, though, too, now, so maybe there is another Rousey. Nonetheless, but still, right? So based on these numbers that come from wherever it is they come from, this is just me doing the math based on that. This is me assuming that these are numbers that Dana is okay with the media running with. The UFC hasn't been beating boxing in that area either. Now, over the past 2 years, there's a problem. Over the past 2 years, the UFC has been kind of running away from it. Running away with it, I should say. Now, there's 2 things going on there. Boxing pay-per-view has been down the past few years for whatever reason. Some people want to say it's illegal streaming. Some people want to say it's a lack of willingness between the promotional companies to make the fights happen. Some people want to say we just simply don't have the right guys yet. And doing some of this research, I noticed that there was a time period from, I think, like 2003 to 2007 in which boxing, collectively as a sport, did not put up a pay-per-view that put up more than 1 million in that period of time. It was like a 3 or 4 year space. I'll post it. I'll have the right information, but it's somewhere in that range. It's a bit of a lull, right? And I'm sure back then, because this argument's been going on forever, I'm sure back then it was boxing's dead. What are we gonna do? The sky's falling. And no, Floyd came around and it ticked back up, and it ticked up in ways that it reached heights that it had never reached before. And here we are back saying the same thing. I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Right? You consider what we said about Masvidal and the treatment alone. Right? And this is not like I said, man, I don't, it ain't my lane. I don't have to deal with UFC people. But you take the treatment. You take the fact that the numbers are, I don't know what the argument is from the perspective of a UFC guy. And I would love to know. I would love to be wrong or proven wrong or have somebody show me what information I need to be looking at in order to know that the UFC is bigger than boxing. By the way, one promotional company is bigger than boxing. The video game freaked people out this week. It threw them for a loop. You got boxing fans that are. See, I don't agree with this. They take this as some sort of moral victory that boxers are on a UFC game, and that the UFC needed these boxers in order to sell the game. I don't know about that, man. I take it as a slap in the face that boxing doesn't have its own fucking video game. Right? Like, if you're a boxing fan, a UFC fan could just say to you, you don't even have a video game. What are you talking about? You don't even have one. So, that's why they're on this one, because there is no other one. So we're losing there. And I don't know, again, I guess it's easier to happen when Dana can just make whatever deal, it seems, right? Like with Reebok, they switched from Reebok, and I think now they're with Venom now. It seems that he kind of rules the roost over there. And again, I might be speaking out of school, but I need somebody to explain it to me. Where do we get this, that the UFC is so far superior? Where do we get that they're pulling so far away? I only see it in the case of what's going on at Top Rank right now. It's the only place I see it. And I've only been seeing it for the past year and a half. And again, Dana, with regards to the pay-per-view, boxing certainly has taken a dip. But there are no official numbers, certainly not since the ESPN merger. And all of a sudden, what do you know? We see a major uptick in the pay-per-view buys as of late for UFC. So make of that what you will. So I got no problem with it. I watch boxing because I'm more likely to see the kind of fighting that I like in boxing. And even then, I don't always get the kind of fighting I like in boxing. It's a bit of a mixed bag. It's just that I'm more likely to see that kind of fighting. I hope that makes any kind of sense. And UFC, when I see guys, slug it out, and even if they're throwing some kicks in there, as long as it's not, the grappling loses me a little bit. And I'm not saying that there's not an art or beauty to that. I don't see it. But yeah, I'm with it, man. I don't really have, I don't have no, not that I don't want no sauce. I don't give a fuck what you UFC guys think, but I don't have any beef with you guys. I think you guys are cool. You do your thing, and fuck you crazy kids, get out of here. But don't say that that the UFC is taking over boxing, or that I don't understand it. Tell me the argument. Tell me what I'm missing. That's it. Thank you.